And then we have studio recording. So this is more about just recording events, just about anything, uh, in a controlled environment. All right. So you get like, acoustically treated walls, floors, ceilings, and the like. You're not doing Foley necessarily. You're not synchronizing to any action. You're just kind of recording sounds. And this way, you have the opportunity to also use more accurate equipment, like very expensive microphones that may be too delicate to bring out in the field, or you know, studio equipment that you need to have that's just very expensive. It's not portable. All right, and again, you have an acoustically treated, acoustically preferred space, and you're going to get better results in your recordings because you've kind of gotten rid of reflections by adding acoustic treatments to the walls, for example, like foam tiles. And the more tiles we can add to a wall, the more absorption we'll get. So those reflections, the sound won't ping pong around, sound like a gymnasium, right? There's even ways to scatter sound. We talked about diffusion in lecture 3. And so you can place diffusers on the ceiling, which will, there's kind of these geometric shapes that are attuned to certain frequency ranges, and they will kind of hone in on those frequencies and scatter them like a jagged surface, right? And so the combination of diffusion and absorption is really going to kill any reflections in the room and make it very, what we call a very dead room. You don't want to be too dead, like the vacuum of space dead, but you want to get rid of a lot of the standing waves so that you can have a clear and audible recording without any coloration. You should be the one that adds the reverb later, not have it by consequence of recording in the room. You can place your speakers on what are called recoil stabilizers. Sometimes they're just called pads. Okay, you just put your computer monitors, your speakers on here, and you're going to be able to listen to a mix, and it's not going to vibrate on the desk and have you make different decisions, mixed decisions, because that happens sometimes. The frequencies resonate into the desk, onto the mouse, onto your hand, without you knowing. It's very subtle, but it may affect the way you mix audio. And bass traps. These are often placed in the corners because you can place them just about anywhere, but low frequencies tend to kind of migrate to the corners of rooms, especially like a square room, just the physics behind how that behaves. And anyway, these are these wedge-shaped pieces of foam that are very thick, and they're designed to absorb very low frequencies, like 100 hertz and even lower, at it's kind of normal range of volume, nothing too excruciatingly loud. But if you have a mattress, if you have a sofa, right, even a couple of sofa cushions, anything, just throw them into the room and it'll do the same thing. The bass traps these tend to be expensive. I don't know what they cost now, but the last time I purchased some for a studio installation, they were like $80, $90 each, and they're only maybe 2 feet, 3 feet high by 1 to 1.5 feet wide. So they can be expensive. You can also get sound absorbers around your microphone. If you don't want to spend a ton of money, you can get at least a little something. They even have ones you see on the far left there. It's a cabinet that opens up that has acoustic material in it. You just put on your wall and just open it up when you want to do recording, and you have something to talk into that isn't going to have reflections ping-ponging all over the place. You can even get what are called ceiling clouds. These are basically foam tiles or some sorts of various sorts of materials. Sometimes it's like 3 or 4 different kinds of materials, cloth and so forth, that are hanging from essentially fishing line with eyelets that are into the ceiling to help absorb any reflections that may be ping-ponging off to your ceiling. There are room solutions, like for $500 on your favorite online music store, you can get any sorts of this is called Prime Acoustic, the London kit. It's about $500-$600, and it's basically you can mix and match to your heart's content. It doesn't matter how you put them on your wall, but so long as you have enough coverage for a particular size room, you'll be good. And that varies depending on who you talk to, an acoustics expert, but usually you want to have like maybe at a minimum 50% of the wall space insulated or have foam tiles on the wall. I would recommend maybe even 2/3. you can go 100%, but then you're going to feel like you're in, some sort of isolation chamber. That may not be healthy for your brain. So you may want to, at least have a window or something. But 2/3 is usually the rule of thumb. At least it has been for the studio installations that I've put together. And sometimes you have sounds that don't fit into any of these categories. They don't exist in the real world. So we need to find a way to create them. And the easiest way is through software and custom hardware, actually, that it still exists. There's a lot of software-based tools, but hardware is still where it's at sometimes because it always works. It's reliable. Yes, it's expensive, but it always delivers the goods without having to worry about, I changed the operating system, so it doesn't work anymore, right? This is kind of like class compliant, they call it, hardware that just always works. All right. Let's see. So this could be virtual instruments, sound modules, tone generators, samplers. All right. Sometimes we could just use plugins. Some of the plugins that you'll discover even in Game Audio 1 may be of interest to you that really you can take a source sound and create something that doesn't exist in nature, with pitch shifting and types of delays and echoes and things like that. Okay. And then there's off-the-shelf sounds. These are super convenient, right? We talked about how cheap they are. If you want to just buy a sound of a bird tweeting, you can just spend a couple of dollars and you'll have the license to use this bird sound effect. Oftentimes you can buy a kit or a whole library in bulk, but that may run you hundreds or even thousands of dollars for some of the major brand ones. They do save time and money, and they are a necessity for any sound designer. No matter how many custom sounds you create, there'll always be some off-the-shelf sounds that you end up using. And you could just say, I'm going to do the whole thing, off the shelf and just use those for those source sounds for your sound design, which is fine. It's totally legitimate way to work. But as you saw with the Wilhelm screen, you have to be careful of overuse with some of the more distinct sound effects. And there's more and more resources available every year. And as you also know from the in-class exercises, sometimes you really, the art is not only in the sound that you find, source sound, but how you search for it. And there is no magic bullet for that. It's just something you have to, just use your instinct on. As I mentioned, one of the biggest libraries is Sound Ideas, and they own, it's got to be in the millions of sound effects. There's all the major brands. They just kept buying up all these companies, sound effects, or partnering with them, I should say. And just about anything you need, they probably have. Hollywood Edge is another very large one that tends to have a lot of unique like Foley and specialized audio, like race cars or historical sounds, like 10,000 barbarians running in a field kind of thing. Then there are marketplaces like SoundDogs and SoundSnap. There probably are more, but these are the two main sites that are out there at the moment that are really. And Splice is another one. I think you can find a lot of sound clips for your needs. You can just buy a single sound. You could subscribe, like in SoundSnap. You could have an annual fee. Just download everything you want and use it in your game, and you have a blanket license to do that. And we're using Freesound, of course, for our needs. And as I say here, there'll be a varying quality and substance. There's no guarantee of usefulness, and there's probably like 20% of the entire Freesound library is bathroom sounds, which is just totally disgusting. It is part of the Creative Commons library, which means that you can use them all for free, but there will be what are called attributions, and some sounds will be totally free to use without any attributions, meaning you don't have to cite your source, you don't have to give special credit to a person or anyone or company or anything like that. But it varies from sound to sound, and so if you're going to publish your own game and make money off of it, you just have to be careful of these attributions, okay? And I have a bunch of links here. You can experiment, check them out later. All different resources, and there are always more popping up every, just about every month. I do have a movie I'd like you to watch. it's actually a special features from the Wall-E DVD that came out like 10 years ago. It's still fantastic. Building worlds from the sound up, and there are two links here. It's on YouTube, so you can check it out. And I highly recommend you watch it. It's probably, I can't remember the exact time. Maybe it's like 15 minutes or so, and it just shows how characters in this particular movie can have their own unique personalities, and we can express those personalities with sound, their own custom sound design. That could also be their voices, of course, but really just the quality of the frequency ranges we choose, the way pitch changes and so forth, and the motion of these robots that are in the movie. But those techniques, the techniques in this video, apply directly to games, just the way we create, and a lot of the stuff we borrow, a lot of the process that we use in games comes from the movie industry. So you can take everything that's mentioned in here and apply it to games. And there's also a nice history of some of the old Disney sound effects. It's just really cool to see what the sources were, where they came from. All right, and that's it. I'll see you again in lecture 6.